Party with your host, Dustin Rybka.
Hello and welcome to Sex Party. I'm your host, Dustin Rybka. With me on the show this week is Stephanie Smith. She's a friend of mine. She's a friend of the show. If you guys have been watching or listening to this podcast since the beginning, you already know Stephanie. This is her fourth appearance, tying the record for most appearances on Sex Party. This episode is a doozy, and if you know Stephanie and you've been paying attention, there's been this saga that's been going on between her and her boyfriend, whose code name is Koala. It kind of comes to a head in this one. This is a 2-part episode, and it's fucking crazy. I'm not going to lie. We deal with body shaming. We deal with betrayal. We deal with hidden cameras. So yeah, that's a thing. So without further ado, this is part 1 of 2. Enjoy my conversation with Stephanie Smith.
This week's conversation.
Stephanie Smith, welcome back for your 4th appearance. You have tied the record for most appearances on Sex Party. There's one other person who holds the record that is now tied. Welcome back to Sex Party. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm excited to be one of the most visited guests. I thought this was only my 3rd episode, honestly. So
no, it's definitely your 4th.
I was and drunk during one of them.
Well, or a couple. Like I feel like I was pounding shots during 1 or 2 of those too. And we did an infamous like Facebook Live where I feel like we both got, or no, it was Instagram Live where we both got like kind of hammered. You can go to one of the pages and check that out. You know, always a good time. So I feel like I should just serve this up and like let it roll. So like, there's been a saga. For those of you who haven't seen the previous episodes, do yourself a favor, go back and watch all or listen to all the Stephanie Smith episodes. The thing is, though, right, is there's been this saga. You're kind of dating this guy in the first episode. The second episode, things were getting more serious. The third, you guys are moved in and like kind of having a little trouble with like threesomes and whatever.
Yep.
I have no idea what you're going to say. Like there's been pre-conversation, but I didn't even want to be really let in. I wanted to find out with the audience, but like you have told me that there has been some serious developments with this relationship. And so with that, welcome to Sex Party for your 4th time. And how are you doing?
Well, I'm okay. This is the first day I haven't cried in a long time. So if tears do come up, I will say I'm apologizing in advance because it's all still really fresh. Also, I want to preface this by saying that I'm slightly unhinged still because I am single now. So we're just going to segue right in there. So this isn't supposed to be like a smear campaign against my ex or anything like that, but I am still, emotions are a little high, and I'm sure there's probably going to be things that I maybe regret saying, but that's where my mental state is right now. So just prefacing that.
We love that. We love that.
So this episode started, I feel like we started talking about this actually like at least a month or 2 ago. That was kind of like, this specific event, it was what kind of catapulted me into like where I'm at now. So basically, as you know, Koala and I were in an open relationship. We were trying the whole threesome thing, which, it's always difficult trying to find someone who's into both of us or both parties of a couple or whatever. So we were kind of entertaining that, but it wasn't as easy as we thought. And then we entertained the whole open relationship thing. So the open relationship situation, it was very difficult to deal with at the time because he wanted it to be one-sided. So he didn't want me to go out and sleep around and have my fun and, all of that. And he just wanted to do his thing. It was difficult for me to agree to that because I wasn't getting my needs met at home. So basically he just kind of chalked it up and was like, I don't ever want to have sex with you. So that was like a huge blow to just my mental health and my ego and all of that stuff. We had many conversations and arguments about it. And basically, I mean, if you guys are listeners and know my story, whether it's my podcast or on Dustin's, I used to be 400 pounds. I had bariatric surgery, and now I'm weigh about like 150, 155. So a ton of weight has been lost. And unfortunately, because of that, my body isn't in the most, picture perfect kind of, aesthetically pleasing way. I fully plan on getting plastic surgery at some point, but I just like can't afford it right now. And I'm like trying to save, and I have a lot of other things going on. But yeah, he basically was just like, I don't find your body attractive, and I don't want to have sex with you, and I want to get my physical needs met elsewhere. And he was like, it's not your personality. I think your face is pretty, blah, 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 blah. And that was that. So I was like, you know what? Like, you're not meeting my needs at all at home. So like, I'm not going to swing with this. Like, I'm not going to sit there and say, yeah, you can go out. Like, if I was getting my needs met at home, I maybe would have been a little bit more kind of lenient with it. So with that said, so one of the girls that he had been seeing, on and off during our relationship, because he did agree to it finally at one point. He was just like, I don't really want to know, I want to go out and have sex with other people. So if you want to go out, then I'm not arguing anymore. So he kind of just like threw his hands up. And even though it wasn't what he wanted, he did reluctantly agree to it. And I never even like abused it too, which was funny. Like, he would try to go out like way more often than I did. And in any case, so he was seeing this girl on and off, and she, from my understanding, did not know that he was in a relationship, or she knew about me, but thought that I was in the past. So with all my toxic snooping and all of the things that I used to go through his phone, his watch, his, all kinds of stuff. I would see the messages with this girl, and she got pregnant.
Wait, okay, hold on. Time out. For let's take our first time out right now. First of all, fuck this guy. Like straight out. Like, fuck this guy. Two, like, what did he want you to do? Did he want you to, he just wanted to be friends? Like, you guys going to be roommates, or?
So basically, this situation with us not having sex has been going on for a majority of our relationship. And that's really one of the reasons why I stopped doing my own podcast, because I was like, wow, I really don't have content to talk about right now. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was very embarrassing, because I was like, okay, I just went from this like cougar MILF, like kind of, these guys in Boca and around the town that I live in, we're all kind of like, oh, you're a MILF, you're a cougar, like, you're this icon, like, it's so great that you talk about sex, and like, you're so adventurous, and this, that, and the third. And then for him to kind of like take that away from me, like, he called me in one of our last arguments or fights, like right before we broke up, he was like, you're just so boring in bed. Like, I mean, he was like, I mean, it was really like, it fucked with me like big time. So that was one of the reasons why I hadn't done the podcast, because I was like, well, I can't really talk about the fact that I don't have sex, because this is embarrassing and I feel like an imposter. And also too, I was still trying to process everything. Mm-hmm. So I had said in multiple arguments over the last like year and a half, like, maybe you just like me as a friend, like you're allowed to move into the spare room, and we can just be friends and be, in each other's lives, and not call this a relationship. And for him, he was like, it's not about that. He was like, it's literally just because of your body. Like, I just don't like that you don't have big boobs. I don't like that you don't have an ass. I don't like that your skin sags and hangs and all of this stuff. And what's funny is that when he met me, I was obviously bigger. I wasn't 400 pounds, but I was probably another like 50-ish pounds heavier than I am now. And there was no problem there. I've seen some of the girls that he's hooked up with and that he's brought over for threesomes and stuff like that. And like, bigger girls were not a problem, but he also likes skinny girls too. So I'm just kind of like, all right, this is definitely like specific to me. My therapist kind of shed some light on what her thought process was. And, she's never met with him or spoke with him or anything like that. So this isn't, her saying a finite, whatever, like advice, but she was saying that she thinks that he has something called the Madonna whore complex. So basically, because he's slept around so much in his past, and I've kind of filled this, the Madonna whore complex is basically men put women on a pedestal and, treat them as a Madonna or, a motherly figure or something like that. And they can't do anything sexual with them. And then the whore is who they can defile and fuck and sleep with, and it's, you know, whatever. So she thinks it's kind of in that realm, you know, as far as why he wouldn't sleep with me. He claims it's not that, you know, and he's never been to therapy or, you know, spoke to anyone and, you know, about any of this. But yeah, that's what she was kind of saying. So it was just always like, I just don't want to have sex with you. He would always come up with like a different excuse or a different reason. And it was really, really difficult. It was really difficult to deal with. So especially when I'm not getting, you know, my needs met at home. And then to find out that one of his fuck buddies, who he had in his phone as a different name, he had it in his phone as his best friend's name. Oh. And then she's like talking to him like they're like going to be in a relationship. And that was my whole struggle with the open relationship side of things too, because I said to him, I said, look, like I could see if you wanted to just fuck these people, you know, like I've had casual sex my whole fucking adult life. You know what I mean? Like I can have sex with no strings attached and have no emotional connection with someone, just get off and have fun and be on my way. And I said, you're saying the same thing and that's what you want. But I said, my problem is I'm seeing messages and having your little girlfriends all stalk me because they don't know about me. They don't know about the full story. You're texting them during the day to see how they are. Like you're checking in with them. And I said, like the physical thing is one thing, but the emotional side of things is not okay. And I said, like, that's like, I don't fuck with that. And I said, I never will. Like, I'm never going to be okay with you texting all of your little girlfriends that you're trying to fuck and say, hey, how's your day going? Or like, are you okay? Or like, I want to go to dinner with you or like, whatever. Like, I was like, I'm not good with that. So I said to him, I was like, we can be friends if you want. And he was adamant that he, you know, was like, I've never had feelings like this for anyone. Like, it's taken me so long to say I love you because you're the first person I've loved and, you know, all of this stuff. So it's been like really hard for me to process kind of like what's real, what's not real, what's like deeper than like, you know, kind of the surface level, like aesthetic stuff versus like, you know, like an actual complex or, you know.
Right. Well, I mean, this sort of sheds a lot of light on your feelings in the last episode, because in the last episode, you were like really frustrated that you couldn't bring another guy in and have a threesome with two guys, right? Or at least that's the way you voiced it, whatever. But now it seems like if he wasn't having sex with you or having sex with you enough, like you just wanted to have sex with a guy. You want to have your actual needs like met. So when you guys were having threesomes, he was like bringing women over or whatever, right? Like, was he just like banging the other chick and like messing with you, or how
no, he would sleep with me. I mean, also because like I was very verbal in one of our threesomes. It wasn't our first threesome, because our first threesome, I feel like honestly was the best because the girl was very much into both of us and she split her time between the two of us. So like no one was getting jealous. Like it was literally like out of all the encounters that I've had sexually, like with him in a threesome, that was the best one. And it's been unfortunate because all the other times were like someone was being left out. It was most of the time me, because most of the girls were not bisexual or lesbians or whatever. Mm-hmm. So they really were more into him. And because I'm not bisexual, I was just kind of like, not really, I'm like, all right, well, I don't even like fuck with this girl. Like, why am I gonna, you know, like, this isn't even fun for me. So I had many conversations with him, you know, during the time where we were entertaining threesomes, because I was like, look, I don't want to feel left out of my own relationship. Like, this is ridiculous. Okay. I was like, at this point, I said, then why do you even need me there? Like, then just go out and fuck them. I said, if we're in an open relationship, and I said, if you don't want me to be a part of the threesome, then go out and do your own thing. And he's like, well, no, I want you there and whatever. So then I was trying I was like, okay, so maybe he's into the whole like cuckolding, cuck-queening thing. And I was like trying to come up with different ways, like to, you know, to make both of us happy. I was like, well, if you're agreeing to the open relationship thing, do you want to pick the guy for me? Do you want me to only fuck one guy, like and keep consistent? Or do you want it to be a different guy every time so I don't get attached? Or do you want to be there and like watch, but like not participate? Do you want to watch on a camera? Like I was giving him every single scenario I could give him. And it was always just no.
Well, of course. Okay. So, and for maybe some newcomers that aren't familiar with the terms like you and I are, explain what cuckolding is and cuck-queening is. Cause, Yeah, because I think they would benefit from that.
So,
we are an educational program.
So cuckolding is when a cis male typically watches their female partner with another guy, and they're not typically participating. A lot of times it has to do with like penis size. So that kind of falls into like the size queen kind of aspect, but that isn't always the case. Size doesn't always matter for that, but I think that's like typically a, kind of a stigma.
Sure.
A common theme. And then cuck queening is the opposite. So it's a woman, wanting to watch her man with another person, and not participate. So it's really just kind of like the watching part of it. So I had said that to him. I was like, well, like, do you want to, what else can we do? So we're both on the same page. And that was my biggest argument with him was, I was like, I'm going out of my comfort zone in every single aspect of my sexual world with you. I've slept with trans women. I have done threesomes. I've now eaten women out or fingered them or done all different things with women. Like, I was like, I've done every scenario you could think of. I'm letting you go out and fuck people like without me being a part of it. All of these things. And I was like, you can't even budge, like, or at least try to have sex with me. I mean, Dustin, we literally went like, I'm pretty sure it was 6 months without having sex at one point. 6 months. Like, that's not normal.
So, and that was with did the threesome stop? And then for 6 months, there was nothing. You guys were out on your own?
No. So the 6 months was actually before we were even open. Like, it was like really like, cause there was issues, like we were fighting a lot about it. And then that's when I finally was just like, all right, like, then let's be in an open relationship.
Right.
Well, I can at least go out and sleep around. But the problem was he agreed to it. And we had certain rules, like we couldn't bring people over. You had to use a condom, like, just standard, like basic rules, and he always tried to manipulate the situation because he didn't want me sleeping with other people. And my logic was, I'm like, okay, if you don't want to fuck me and you think my body's so disgusting and like, whatever, all of these things, whatever the reason is, which I don't think that the reasons that he was telling me were the actual, like, I think they were surface level reasons. I don't think they're the actual reasons, but whatever excuses were coming up that day, I was like, I said, you come up with a different excuse every day and you just won't have sex with me. And I was like, but then I'm not allowed to have sex with other people. So I'm like, you're getting your needs met across the board and I'm not. And I said, I'm done. Like I said, I'm done with the threesome thing. I said, I'm not doing that anymore. I said, every single time we have a threesome, I feel like shit because I'm left out or whatever. We get into an argument about who's coming over or what's happening or whatever. And I said, I'm done. I said, I'm not doing the threesome thing anymore. So after that was off the table, he said that he didn't really want to like do the whole open relationship thing because he knew that I would be going out because he's seen the messages that I get from guys. Like
I'm sure.
Like, everyone's name keeps popping up. Like guys keep coming up out of the blue because they've had recent, relationship breakups and all kinds of shit. So they all know I still live in Boca,
Right. He knows that you have 3,700 Tinder or Bumble matches. So whatever.
Exactly.
Right. So okay, like just to put this in the timeline, right? Like, so you guys move in, you're having sex, stop me wherever I'm wrong, right? Correct me wherever I'm wrong. You guys are having sex. All of a sudden the sex stops. It goes for like 6 months. Is he making excuses like, oh, I'm just tired or I'm stressed or I had too much chicken nuggets or like what?
Yeah. So basically, so we met in November of 2021. We literally met as a hookup, like on Bumble. And then he went back to school. We started dating again February or March of 2022. So we started hanging out and he was moved in by that June. So up until the point where he moved in, our sex life was okay, but it definitely had dwindled a lot. It was definitely, he was kind of going through his own stuff. He was like really depressed that summer and, kind of going through it on his own. So he wasn't working. I was trying to like, kind of help him through that and, try to, do things that were making him happy. That's where the snake situation came in. For those of you who don't know the situation, we have a whole reptile farm that we have bought. We have like snakes and lizards and all kinds of shit. So that was like part of the depression. Like, oh, let's like see if we can do things that make you happy, and he kept saying, oh, I don't want to have sex. So I'm just like, okay, maybe he just like really is depressed, like I get it, like whatever.
So were you guys like masturbating together? Was there
No,
anything?
I even offered that as an option too. Nothing. I was like, do you want to watch porn together? Like something like,
right.
Like I was like something that we could do, like, so
he would say no to like head. He would say no to everything.
Yeah, like he didn't even like want me to give him head, which was like, it was just crazy. Like, so I was just like, all right. Like at first I was like, this isn't a me thing. He's just depressed and whatever. So then as time went on and I snooped so much. So here's my toxic shit. And I'm going to own, my toxic part of this relationship because like I said, I don't want him to just be like the bad guy and all of that. But
well, he's already that, so.
Yeah, but what I did was not okay too. So he has 2 phones. So I went through both of his phones many times. I had a hidden camera in my room, which I never disclosed because I didn't want him to find out, but he knows about it now. So I had a hidden camera in my room. It looks like an alarm clock and it has a camera in it. So I would literally watch what he was doing. Like, if I had the time at work, I was listening to the audio, especially if he was on a phone call or whatever. So I would literally see him jerk off, and instead of like wanting to have sex with me, like it would be like, I would leave the house and then he would jerk off and I'd be like, the fuck? Like, I kept I'm like, what is wrong? Like, I was like, I just don't understand. Like, I've never had a guy turn me down. Even when I was 400 pounds, I never, like, if a guy wanted to fuck me, they were going to fuck me. Like, so I was like, how am I in this situation where I'm living with my boyfriend and he just is not wanting to have sex with me? Like, it was just a really hard pill to swallow. And I just kept making excuse after excuse. And, so we went months without having sex. And then we finally, I think it was around one of the times when I made a fake Tinder account or a fake Bumble account or something.
Before we get to that, I really feel like we need to address the fact that you put a hidden camera in the alarm clock. But I just want to know, when did that happen? We need to talk about this a little bit more.
Oh yeah, stop me at any time because of this.
Yeah,
whole story is unhinged, as am I. So there's a lot of follow-up questions.
So, okay, at what point are you like, you know what? I need to put a hidden camera in the alarm clock.
The camera, I will say, was pre-Koala. So I had that in place before I knew him. Okay. So the reason I got
what reason? Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Okay,
Sorry.
So the reason I had a hidden camera, I was seeing this guy for a period of time. And he was very slutty like me. And he kind of was into the cuckolding side of things in the sense where he was like, I like the girls that I'm with to be slutty. So he didn't care if I wanted to sleep with other guys. He wanted to know about it though. Like he'd be like, video it, text me, call me, like whatever, Snapchat. Like he didn't care. He just wanted to know about the encounters. And he thought it was hot that I slept around with other people. So we had been seeing each other for a couple months. And at the time he was like, I would love to be able to watch you. And I was like, bro, I can't like ask every single guy that's coming over to video. And like, I was like, to send to another guy. I'm like, that's weird. So I was like, well, I'm like, what if I put a camera in my room and you can log in wirelessly, like, or like whatever on the app and watch. So he was like, oh, okay, like that could be fun. So I have bought it's like an alarm clock and a wireless phone charger. You can get them on Amazon. It's like, I forget the name of the company. I think it's like LizV or something. Mm-hmm. So, and they have all different types of like iPhone chargers, wireless charger, like whatever. They have a million things. So I kept it, even though him and I at that point, I got the camera, I think a couple more weeks had passed by. We hadn't been able to meet up or, get it situated. And then we stopped seeing each other. He started seeing someone else and so did I. And it just kind of, nothing ever happened, but I had the camera. So I left it there. And for me, I had been robbed before, like years ago, like probably like 15 years ago, someone robbed my apartment. So I was like, all right, whatever. It's just like an extra security camera now,
So for the record, though, you never recorded someone without their consent.
Correct. Yeah.
Let's just get that out of the way now.
Yes. Because this particular camera, you can't just live record. Like, it's not like a Ring camera where it just is actively recording. Like, you have to physically go into the app and hit record while you're doing it. So you can either watch it live or you can record something. But it's like, I don't save any of it. I would just watch it live just to be like, okay, well, like what's being said or what's happening. Mm-hmm. So with that said, I kept the camera and Koala and I had met as a hookup, and I just didn't feel like the need to disclose that to him because I wasn't recording anything at the time and, whatever. So I just kind of didn't say anything. And then obviously he moved in months later, which was never, I think, either of our intentions or neither of us expected that to happen. So it got to a point where I was just like, all right, well, I'm benefiting from the camera. And this is also kind of weird if I bring this up like 8 months later. So I kind of just kept it a secret, which again, I know that's crazy. And I've had a lot of mixed reviews about, from friends or whatever.
Mixed reviews. Oh my God.
Well, I feel like the people who are like okay with it are just like, well, obviously, like he's being a piece of shit to you. And then the ones that aren't okay with it are putting themselves in that, like his situation, being like, well, I don't want anyone knowing what I'm doing. Like, I think their like lives flash before their eyes, basically, because they're thinking about like, oh, well, what does my partner like not know about me? And do they have a camera?
Well, I mean, that's what a private investigator would do, first of all. And second of all, that's what like you were experiencing problems. Like, I'll join you in the toxic fucking train right now. Like, you were having problems. It's not like you were like recording it and then like selling it on the internet. Like, you want to know what the fuck was going on. Was he bringing other girls over? Was he fucking jerking off to fucking teddy bears, or like what the fuck's the problem, right?
Right. And that was the thing. It was like, I literally was just trying to see, because I was like, is he going to bring people over, or like what's being said, or, whatever. And like, look, I'm not going to lie. Like, I overheard a lot of shit in the beginning that I think ruined our relationship in the long run, because obviously my feelings for him were always way more like advanced than his were. Like, it took him a while to catch up to me. You know what I mean? So like, for me, I always had feelings for him. And I was like, once I made the decision, I'm like, oh, I'm not going to sleep with other people or entertain other guys or whatever. That was it. For him, it never stopped. So for him, like when he was having conversations with his single guy friends or his toxic guy friends or whatever, or even girls that he was just trying to sleep with, like this one girl, I remember him having a conversation with her and he was like, yeah, like I'm settled, at my sugar mama's house. And mind you, this was like probably a year and a half ago, or maybe even longer. So he said to this girl, oh yeah, I just like want you to come over and come hang out. Like, I don't love her. She's, and again, this was way early on in our relationship, but that's where his mindset was at. And granted, obviously you're going to tell a girl you're trying to fuck, oh, I don't love her. You know what I mean? Like, all of those things are, so it was a perfect storm. So I'm sitting there trying to differentiate, like, what's real, what's not, who he's telling the truth to, who's not, like all of these things. So the camera, it was beneficial to me in some ways, but it also wasn't, because a lot of the fights that we would have would, it would come up like, I would be in a bad mood and pick a fight because of things I heard or saw on the camera. And he didn't know that I knew those things. So he is looking at me like I'm fucking insane because I'm picking a fight and I'm at a 10 when I should be at a 2. But I'm thinking about the week's worth of shit that I just heard.
And you can't reveal it or you won't have that information anymore. Yeah.
Exactly. So I had to sit there and just, so I was like, internalizing a lot of stuff too. Because I was like,
how hard was that though? To like hold in the fact that you had that information, because I feel like for most people, they wouldn't be able to do it. But for you, you're a professional at this. You can, you can harbor it.
Yeah. I mean, I did. I mean, it didn't like benefit me at all, because it's like now, he knows about it and he thinks I'm insane, obviously. Cause like it came out this past weekend, actually, because him and I got into a huge fight. So, well, we broke up. So he broke up with me. I want to say like 3 weeks ago, because I just was crying so much, like all the time. Like we had decided to take a break. Well, once the pregnancy thing happened, once he got this.
Yeah. So let's bounce back to that. You're still monitoring, you've got the camera, you're still monitoring his, activity through, let me see if I get this straight. Like text message, email, social media. Okay, not email.
So, yeah, social media. I was watching who we would follow and unfollow.
Did you have access to his like accounts and shit?
No. So when I had his phone password, so he was starting to catch on a little bit as things would progress, because I would find out things or fights would happen, and like sometimes I would either like slip up a little bit, or whatever the case was, or he would be like, how does she know this? Like, she definitely knows my phone password or whatever.
Sure.
So at one point, like he had changed his phone password a couple times and I didn't know that password. So his second phone, I didn't have, I had the password for that. Then he switched it. So when I had access to his main phone, I would go through his Instagram and shit like that. But then obviously I lost access. I had his watch password. So then I was able to see some things on his watch. like mostly messages. And that's how I found out he got the girl pregnant, because she texted him a picture of the pregnancy test saying, "We're pregnant." And I was like, oh my God.
So before we get into this bullshit, right? Like, did you guys ever have a threesome with this girl who got pregnant?
We always wanted a relationship with him, and he always led her on, basically saying that either we were broken up or on a break or whatever the case was. So she knew about me, but not that he was like living with me and that we were actively.
So, okay, and that brings up another, like, why live with you? He was just like some bum, like looking for a place to live. Like, why do you think he just thought because he's like calling you like his sugar mama and whatever. And even though you're making excuses for him, because it was like early in the relationship, like, fuck that. Like, what was his true intention? That like you were a hookup and then you guys like sort of like had a lot of things that maybe felt like made you connected. I mean, to move in with someone, I mean, he's either just like a fucking bum looking for a place to live, or there's something else going on that I'm not seeing.
Well, and that's what most people in my circle who know the situation and have known what's been going on for the last, year and a half, 2 years, they all are like, look, he was having his cake and eating it too. Like, you gave him a free place to stay. You took care of everything for him financially, which I did. He never paid a dime. Anytime we would go out, he didn't pay rent. He didn't pay bills. He didn't pay anything. Like, he just paid for like whatever his shit was, like if he went out with his friends or his gas and whatever. And so everyone in my circle was just like, Stephanie, he doesn't love you. Like, he doesn't care about you. He doesn't give a fuck about you. You're just like a stepping stone. And I was like, I get that. But that's why it was always so confusing to me, because I would sit there and have so many conversations with him every time an issue would come up or we would get into a fight or whatever the case was. And I'd be like, look, we can just be friends. Like, this is okay. Like, I can pivot and like not be in a relationship with you, and you can go be free and single and do all of the things you want to do. And you can still live here in the spare room, and we don't have to like get into all this bullshit and fight all the time. And he was adamant. I never had feelings this way for someone, and da 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 da. And I was like, look, you can have love for people. Like, there's friends of mine, like John, anyone who listens to my podcast knows about my best friend, John. John is, yes, he is my friend, but he is also like my family. Like, I care about him more than some blood relatives that I have, and I would do anything for him. And I said, that's what I was trying to explain to Koala. I was like, look, I get that you don't have a circle of friends like I do. You know what I mean? I was like, I get that you don't have that dynamic with a lot of people, but I said, you can have a lot of love for someone and not be in love with them or want to be in a relationship with them. And he was like, no, I want to be in a relationship with you. Like, so, and I was just like, I was like, there's something I'm missing. Like, I was like, I don't get it, just like how you just said, like, I don't understand. Cause I was like, I'm giving you the out. I'm letting you sit here saying that, like, you can still live with me. I can still be part of your life, but you're free to go fuck whoever you want. And it was no. And I'm like, I don't understand. Like, why do you want to sit there and fight with me and be stressed out and have to sneak around and all of this stuff? I was like, there's a piece of the puzzle that's missing that I'm still not.
And this was during the time that you guys weren't having sex.
I mean, at this point, I probably can count on both hands how many times we've had sex in the last year. Probably. I mean, like, solo, I'm not counting threesomes or things like that, but I'm talking like just him and I.
At what point does he just finally out and say the terrible, hurtful shit you said in the beginning of the episode? Like, how far along was this? How recent was this? Was he just like finally like, fine, I don't want to have sex with you because this, and this? Like, when did that happen?
It was ongoing. It would happen every time we would get into a fight or an argument, which was like, it was basically like almost happening like once a month, like we would get into a huge fight and we would not, we would like try to squash it or whatever. It would be a week of weird. And then we would be, fall back into place, and then it would be a fight again. And
how would you make yourself okay with that? I mean, that had to hurt. You know what I mean?
Dustin, I cried all the time. I mean,
yeah, well, I'm sorry you went through that. That's fucking crazy, first of all. But like, if you're dealing with that every other week, basically, where someone's saying they don't want to have sex with you and they're listing off reasons, like, what did that feel like, right? And why keep putting up with it?
It's like people always ask me, like, why did I keep going? And I think for me, I'm a Libra, so I'm very much like we love and like all that stuff. And it's like, I'm very much the type of person, like with my ex, we were on and off for 10 years. Okay. So it's like, he was bipolar. Like I always get a soft spot. Like I'm like Khloe Kardashian, honestly. My friends have called me Khloe Kardashian before. I'm always trying to find a fucking project. And, like I love shelter dogs. It's like, I love shelter guys too. You know what I mean? Like not actual homeless shelters, but like ones that like need.
Well, kind of. I mean, you kind of took this guy in and gave him a home. Like, he basically was homeless.
Yeah, I know, pretty much. I mean, well, so he was living with his parents before that. But then he just, he ended up being at my place all the time. And then he just was like, all right, like his options were, before he moved in, he was either going to go back to school, which was 3 hours away, or he was going to stay here and do online stuff. And he had told it, I remember like him telling me like, yeah, I told my mom, I want to stay with you. I'm really going to miss you. And I don't want to go back to, or he went to school in Orlando. He's like, I don't want to go back to school. And I can't imagine my life without you in it. Like he was just like, cause we had, grown very close over the summer. And I was there for him during a lot of like his kind of like quarter life crisis bullshit. And, yeah, I mean, so that was like how he moved in. As far as him staying, I mean, he does, that was part of it because I mean, part of me was like, okay, well, he can't really move back in with his family because there's not space there. And I'm not going to have it hang over my head that he's like homeless. You know what I mean? Like I am a reasonable person, in certain ways, obviously not with cameras and snooping around, but with other stuff, I can be reasonable. So that's why one of the reasons why I kept bringing up in like the more recent fights from like 6 months, to more present day, I would say like, do you just want to be friends? Like, do you just like, is this going to be easier for you to just like not be in a relationship? Because I was like, I feel like I'm holding you back and holding you down from all of the things that are going to make you happy. And I said, I feel like I don't make you happy. And he was like, that's not true. He's like, you do make me happy. And all of that stuff. So yeah, I don't really know why I stayed around. I mean, I feel like I also need to disclose this. He still lives with me. He's renting out the spare room. So we have an actual lease agreement now. I made him sign a lease agreement. Okay. Like he is paying rent and all of that stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's like, he's not completely out of my life yet. Like he's still in my life. I see him every day. And, that's why I had to schedule this when he was like working. Cause I was like, obviously, I mean, he knows I'm doing the podcast because I got drunk on Friday night. So today is Monday for just a timeline. So Friday night I got drunk with a friend and we went out and I picked a huge fight with him. She was staying at my house and I picked a huge fight with him and I brought up the podcast and I was like, you're going to look like the villain and blah. And he was just like, he talked to me, I think it was yesterday. And he was just like, just know that like, I'm not really happy about having all my shit out there. And I was like, look, you're not going to be named. I said, this is my version of the story. I said, you're more than welcome to like go hang out with my podcast friends and share your side if you want. I said, I'm sure you'd love the interview. But, I said, look, I'm not going to look good either because I was like, I sat here and like went through your shit and like snooped around and had a hidden camera. And like, I was like, I'm not like, I was like, I'm not sitting here making myself look out to be an angel either,
So what was the final straw that finally broke you guys up? Before we get to you actually drawing up a lease agreement, which good move, by the way. I still think it's fucking toxic that you guys are in the same space, whatever. But like, so what was the final straw? What caused the breakup? Who broke up with who? Right. And then we'll jump into this pregnant lady.
So there was this one girl who she started following me months ago and I had no idea who she was. I didn't really think anything of it. I was like, oh, maybe she's from the podcast, like whatever, like, cause he wasn't following her. So like when I clicked her profile, it was just kind of like, there she was. And I was like, whatever, like no harm, no foul. She never watched any of my stories. Then all of a sudden I see her come up on my Instagram stories. This was probably like 3 months ago or so. And I'm like, who the fuck is this girl that like now all of a sudden is out of the blue? So I start Googling her, find her mugshot, find that she used to hook up with Koala. And I'm like, oh, so I text him about her. And I was like, we got into a fight about it at that time. And basically, because I said to him, I was like, I said, the only reason she's looking at my shit right now is because you're actively talking to her. I said, when you're not actively talking to her, she doesn't look at my shit. So I was like, obviously you're leading her to believe that I'm not part of your life or whatever. And he ended up blocking her again because they started following each other around that time, blocked her again and stopped talking to her. So then about a month ago, she starts looking at my shit again. So I message her and I was like, I don't really know what you're looking for every time because this is like probably the fourth time that she's in, that span of time that she's looked at my shit. And I was like, I said to him, we were on a break at that point, but I said to him, I said, oh, are you talking to her again? And he was like, no, she hits me up from time to time. And I said, you block everyone. So obviously you actively unblocked her so you could start receiving messages from her again. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to introduce myself. And he was like, he was losing his mind. He was like, don't text her, don't message her. And I said, oh, what? I said, because now I'm going to ruin like one of your little flings. I said, nope. I said, he's like, I told you to block her forever ago. And I said, no, I said, she actively followed me. I said, my profile is not private. So I said, she didn't have to follow me. Like she made the active choice to follow me and then stalk me every single time you guys were actively talking. So I ended up messaging her the screenshots of me talking to him from the summer about her, like talking shit about her, being like, oh, well, like, just so you know, here's her mugshot and blah, 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 which I have a mugshot too. So I'm not saying anything, but she looked like sloth in her mugshot. So I at least got compliments on mine. So I'll just say that. But so I sent the screenshots to this girl and I said, look, I don't know what you're looking for on my profile, but here's some reading material for you. And I sent her the screenshots of like him making fun of her mugshot and shit and was just like, have so much fun with him. Like, I hope you guys have a great time. So she blocks me, changes all of her social media names because obviously like it took me 2 seconds to find her. Cause in Florida, you can Google anyone's mugshot. It's like our privacy laws are different down here. So it took me 2 seconds to find her. So she blocks me on everything. And that was like what catapulted us into like the last, like probably 2 weeks of like our break and fighting and breaking up. So that happened. I feel like something else happened too. And then he finally was just like, you know what? He was like, he's like, I think we're done. He was like, I cannot watch you keep crying every single day about this. And he was like, I just like don't want that on my shoulders, basically. And he was like, I just think he was like, I thought a break was going to be fine. But like the break was always tough because we still lived together. So it was always the gray areas of like falling back into like cooking together and like whatever, all the coupley bullshit that you do, So it was never really like a break. We were just sleeping separately sometimes, And I don't mean like sex with other people. Like we were just sleeping in separate rooms sometimes. But then we would like end up back together and whatever. So the last like 2 weeks was like me fighting about this girl that was like stalking my shit. And then like just the fact that like he wouldn't even try. I said, you didn't even, I was like, my birthday was in September. I said, we have not even had sex. Like, I was like, I figured you would want to have sex around my birthday at least, like just to fucking try, like nothing. I was like, I was like, so I'm like, this is ridiculous. I was like, of course I'm like hurt by the fact that you literally are just like, I don't want to have sex with you. I said, you don't even try. I said, it's not even like we're getting to a point and then it's just like not going anywhere. Like, look, I get guys can have things come up and you can go soft and whatever. Like, I don't give a shit about that. Like, it's not that big of a deal to me, but like, at least let's get to that point. Like, and then if it's you know what I mean? Like, we're not even getting to that point. Like, it was like, there wasn't even clothes off, and it was just like, your body's gross. I don't like it. And then he always would try to come back and say, I didn't mean that, because when he would say those things, it would be in the midst of a fight, because I am very venomous when I'm angry, and like the shit that I say, like I always know how to really hurt people, because I'm like, I watch what people's insecurities are. So then I always hone in on that when I'm fighting with people. And him, I knew obviously the ins and outs of what, made him uncomfortable or whatever. And
what made him uncomfortable? What were his insecurities?
I mean, just various things about like us, with sexual stuff, or just like things that he would try to hide, or, just things that like, for him, like one of his things, he's a very insecure person, even though he's very good looking. He has big muscles. He is 6 feet, he has a lot of like good aesthetic qualities, but that was like what he based like his self-worth on a lot of times. And like, or like his dick size too. And I'd be like, one time, like during a fight, I was like, you're not even in my top 5. I was like, go fuck yourself. I said, I was like, my top 5 guys are all still local. And I said, they all still have my number. And I said, I have no problem fucking calling them. Because I said, at least they know how to fucking get me off. So like shit like that, where like I was like out for blood. Like those fights were getting me to a point where I was just like, I'm saying nasty shit. And then it was really hard for me to come back from that because he never led with anger like that. I always would like get to a point and then I just black out rage and see red. And then I just say nasty shit. So for me, a lot of our fights were after the fact, me apologizing for things that I was saying because I was just being so like, I was just being so toxic. So I would try to like, push his buttons that way and like, fight with him that way. But yeah, so that was how it ended.
But what are you supposed to do when someone says that they don't want to have sex with you?
I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, I seriously, like I said, I've never like, this is the
exactly.
This is the thinnest I've been. And it's like, I'm like really proud of like where I came from versus now. And it's like, I'm not thrilled with my body, obviously, but it's like also like I got a lot of play when I was 400 pounds too. And that never really stopped anyone. So like, for me, this is such a mind fuck because like I was feeling really good about myself because I'm like, oh, I lost all this weight. All this good stuff is happening, whatever. I'm going to the gym now. I'm healthier. I'm feeling good. And then it was like, oh, well, now your skin's wrinkly and disgusting and I don't want to have sex with you. And I'm like, okay, like
I mean, you can't let him take all that progress away from you though.
No, I mean, I'm still like, I'm getting used to my body again, and it's like, now I'm still on the dating apps, but it's just for myself now. Cause I'm just like, whatever. I have a lot of time to make up for since I haven't had sex and decent regular sex in a really long time. So, obviously like I'm matching with guys, I'm even matching with girls. Cause I'm just like, fuck it. I don't really care. YOLO. I need podcast content. So I'm just matching like with anyone that's good looking. And I've sent plenty of pictures or Snapchats or whatever to people of both genders. And both of them like literally don't care. Like I have not had one person, cause one of his things was, cause he's only 23. So one of his things was, oh, any guy that you hook up with that's like my age is going to have a problem with it. And, they want, hot, like, tight bodies, da, 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 da. And we all know historically as of late, I've only hooked up with younger guys and every one of them literally does not care. Or at least they're they're not saying anything to my face about it. Like, and they're still talking to me wanting to hang out and hook up. So I guess it's not that big of a problem, but,
you have nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you have nothing to worry about. That's fucked. That's just him trying to hurt you again. Yeah. And that's him being jealous and he can't figure out his own fucking bullshit or whatever. So I do remember you guys were having threesomes and you really, you had said you're not bisexual. You were really interested in the women, but now you're saying you're like, fuck it. I'm like connecting with like good looking women or whatever. What's that about? Talk about that a little bit.
So I just kind of was like, it wasn't that I guess I was having this conversation with one of my trans friends actually, because she was saying how she wouldn't date a bi guy for some reason. Cause she was like, oh my God, if a bi guy like left me for a man, like I would be like, I think it would fuck with me. And for me, and then when she put it that way, it kind of made me think. I was like, so I don't consider myself bisexual because I don't see myself ever being in a relationship with a woman. Whereas I consider myself more hetero-flexible because I have had sexual relations with women and I would again. However, I would not want to date them, if that makes sense. So I think that's why, like for me, bisexuality is like you are either going to you're not just sexually attracted to the other gender or the same gender or an opposite gender. You're like, you want to be in a relationship with either. So, and that's how, again, whatever. Labels are so fucking fucked right now anyway. So that's my take on it. So for me, I didn't consider myself bisexual because I wouldn't ever be in a relationship with a woman. But I would hook up with another woman again. So that's why I'm just kind of like, all right, it's hetero flexible.
Well, I mean, maybe now that it's kind of for you, right? Like it's kind of like back then when the threesomes, it was like for him, and now it's like for you. So maybe that makes a big difference too, you know?
Well, and I said to one of my friends too, I was like, the first threesome that him and I had, the girl was very much into me and him. She was into both of us. So it made it fun. And I was like, okay. And I said to him multiple times, I was like, I would love to see her again because it was so fun. Like that was like our first experience and it was a great experience. Everyone was included. No one felt left out. We were all new to it. It was the first threesome for all three of us. So it was just like, it was the perfect storm, you know? And I said, every other situation, it was either me bringing someone over that was more into me or wasn't as into him or vice versa. And I was just like, this isn't fun. Like, two's company, three's a crowd. That's it's true. Someone is always left out in a threesome, whether it's a friendship or a hookup or whatever. So so for the women thing, like, the ones that I did have fun with, the few that I did, I was like, all right, like I'd entertain it. You know what I mean? But again, I would never date, to be like, go on a date and be in a relationship with a woman. That's just not like, I like guys. So.
Sure. And you like reserve the right to fucking change your mind whenever you like. And maybe that'll change. Maybe it won't. Who the fuck knows? We're all human, right? So, okay. I want to go back to this where we started, right? Where he gets this other girl pregnant. Who is the girl he got pregnant? Is it the one that was stalking your Instagram and whatever? And did you find out he got her pregnant after you were broken up, during a break, or?
To be continued.
And cliffhanger. Big thank you to Stephanie Smith for being on the show with me once again. Come back next week for part 2, where this whole thing concludes. If you guys are loving guests like Stephanie, if you want to see Stephanie again, if you want more Sex Party, if you want to show some love, some appreciation, some desire for more Sex Party, you just can't get enough. If you're listening on platforms like Apple and Spotify, you could subscribe to the show. That's the most important piece. You'll never miss a new episode every single Wednesday. You could also leave a rating. You can leave a review. You don't have to do any of that fucking shit at all. You can just kick back and enjoy the show. But I appreciate it if you do. If you're watching on YouTube, hold on, I'm coming. If you're watching on YouTube, I love you. I see you. I appreciate you. If you're watching on YouTube, you can subscribe to the channel. You could like the video. You could leave comments on all the videos. Guys, I'm available in the DMs on Instagram anytime for any questions or concerns. And I will see you right back here next week.
Thanks for listening. The party continues next week. Click subscribe and let's make this a regular thing. Follow the show on Instagram and Twitter @SexPartyFM. Follow Dustin @DustinRybka.